In this video, we're going to explore how we can show a background color here, and we want to make sure that this background color will be dynamic based on the value. As our value increases, you will see that the background color will change along with it. So let's start to look how to do this. So let's start to look how to redraw the background or the background color and the lines based on the datasets in a plugin in Chart.js. So what we're going to do here, first of all, we're going to get here the default code, which is chartjs3.com. Getting started, you can find the default code as well, or the link of it in the description box. Once you're on here, just copy this boiler template, or the default code here. So I'm going to copy this. If you want to understand what this code does, watch this video here. That explains it all. So then, I'm going to paste that in here. I'll cut out this, and put that in here. Save. Refresh. There we are. So now, what I want to do is I want to convert this into a line chart. So it's a line here plus maximize the size 80%. Save, refresh. So now we have this here. What I want to do is data set. I'm going to say here tension. The border width can be removed and we make the tension 0.4. Save that, refresh. Alright. So now we have this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add up basically a few object values. One is the level, which would basically define the level of the item. Next one, and this will be, let's say here there are 5 different items in your 10, and let's make this one 1000. I make this very high on purpose. And next what I want to have is I want to have a matching color. So we can say here the level border, and this might be even the level border color. And to do this, because we're going to use certain colors here, I'm going to grab this border color here, number 1, and then we have another one here. This is red, so then we have here, the yellow. And finally, we're going to put in here the green one. And the green one is the 4th value. So put that in here. So once we have this comma, I'm going to say here level background, which is referred to the background color. So I'm just going to copy all of this here. So put it in here, but then background color transparency 0.2. Here 0.2, and then the alpha level 0.2, so there will be transparency of 80% and 20% visibility. That's basically what we're doing here. Alright, now I have this. What I want to do is I want to duplicate this one, and maybe this one we call the cards. Now it's basically the question, but this is basically a more advanced item, because we're going to do now the colors as well of the background that I didn't cover previously. So now I'm going to give here this one numbers. And in the numbers, we do the same, except I want to have different items. And let's make this one slightly different. Let's say 20, and this will make 30, and then we have 60, and then maybe we have 90, whatever. Any kind of color is fine, doesn't matter here, and any other value. So what I want to do here is we can copy these, or let's get some other colors. Let's make this blue. So I'm going to put in here the blue, there we are. Then we can make here, the yellow, that's fine. And then we're going to grab here the, this is the orange or the purple, I'm not 100% certain. There we are. And we'll just get this one here. And then we have 4 items, we should have 1 more, so I'll just get the red one as the last one. Most likely, we will not notice the last colors. But that, anyway, that will be later on because it will be based on these levels here. So we're going to put it in here. 0.2, 0.2, 0.2, 0.2, and here, of course, again, 0.2. Remove the comma here. That's not necessary. And this one here could be removed as well. But make sure we have one here. This one here at the end should be removed. Alright. So we have this, and we have duplicated them both. So that looks all fine. The commas are here correctly set. So what I want to do here, this is the numbers. Let's give this a different color. In this case, just a black line. That's fine. Border color here, and this one will be the red one. Very identical to our previous item. And maybe we can even remove the array. You don't have to make any array out of it. Just to keep it a bit more cleaner. And reducing the amount of code here. The reason why we don't need array because we only have one static value here, or static color. So the color will be always the same no matter what. Make sure comma, save, refresh. Alright, so we get an error here. Apparently I'm forgetting something. Unexpected identifier on 58. Number 58. Let's see here, border color. my bad. I thought I'd put in all the commas. Alright, so we get this, but of course that both of them are on top of each other. So let's do some dynamic coloring here. Or dynamic numbers. 6, and then I'll make this one 100. There we are. Alright, so now we have this, and basically what we need to do eventually is this here should be an independent data set. So I'm going to create here just two separate constants. One will be, let's say, cards. And the cards will have this item here. Let's copy all of this, put it in there, and you can see here, remove this excess, and then remove all the excess in tab. There we are. So when you have the first one, semicolon here, next one will be the second item, which is the numbers label here. So we can just copy all of this, and maybe we can just say here constant numbers equal, and then paste that. Alright, that works. Proper indentation here. Semicolon here. There we are. So now what we can do here for the data sets, we can just remove all of these data sets. We don't need them here. But we can just put in here whatever we want. So let's say we want to get the cards, and all the cards value should be shown. Save that, refresh, there we are. If I change this to numbers, you will see this will be now converted into numbers. So this works all, this is all confirmed. Next what I want to do is I want to have basically two items. I want to draw the items, but eventually I have a function with the button that should work on this. What we can do here is, I guess we can just let's create the plugin first. So that the options here, after the options comma, we say here plugins, and in this case we're going to say background levels. Grab this. Then I'm going to say here / this background levels plugin block constant. This equals ID, and then we have this one here, and then we have here the when we would like to draw this. In this case, we can say we want to draw it before the data set. So data sets draw, and basically we're going to say here chart, arcs, plugin options. So within here, object destructuring constant, and what I need here is, and if you don't understand what is object destructuring, I'm going to recommend you to watch my video understanding object destructuring for Chart.js. So I'm going to say here CTX, I guess we can get the data we need. We will be needing the chart area, and the chart area specifically top, bottom, left. This should be left, right, width and height. And then we have a comma here, and then we have the scales, and then we do X and Y. So by the way, if you want to understand what chart area is, I'm going to recommend you a video understanding chart area in Chartjs, which is as well in the description box. So once we have this, we're going to say here this equals the chart object, that is this one here. Alright, now we have this. What we're going to do here, ctx.save to save all variables above, and then what we're going to do is we're going to start to draw. The first one is the easiest one. It's basically drawing the lines, and the lines are based on the levels, and later on we have these level lines, but they will also refer to the background, but that will be slightly more tricky. Anyway, I'm going to show you that later on. So let's start to do on the first one here. We're going to use here the data sets. What I'm going to do here is basically a for each loop. So we're going to loop through all of these, not the data, but the levels. And with that, we can start to draw the lines depending on basically on the line level values and the colors that we were going to grab, that are these ones here. So we're going to say here dot, and I'm going to say here level. So if you're wondering how do I get there from data to data sets, so the data is basically here, and then the data sets, or more specifically the data comes here. Data sets would be whatever the reference is. In this case, the reference is numbers by default. So we're going to grab that one, and that has some multiples, as you can see here. And then I'm going to say here dot. Let's see here. Then we're going to say here dot for each, because we want to do a for each loop, of course. Then in here, double parentheses, and here have the function error expression. Alright, so we have this, but then here we need to put in shorthand. In this case, I'll say here the level here is a reference to this here. So basically a shorthand for every individual level. Comma index. Index can be useful. So let's start to look at it. So what we need to do here is basically the following. We're going to say here, because this is a value here, I'm going to loop through all of these values. Well, let's say we can start to draw something here. I'm going to say here ctx dot, and there's a begin path, meaning I want to start to draw a shape or a line, but this must be independent of everything. Then what I want to do is I'm going to say a ctx dot line width, and a line width, let's make this a nice thick line of 3 pixels. Next, what I want to do here is to, well, let's start to draw the line first, and after we're going to give it a color. I'm going to say ctx.move to, and the move to defines our starting point. Basically, you can see it like a pencil on this canvas, and remember, canvas is like a painting or a blank sheet that is ready to be painted on. So what we want to do here with the move to is to select the starting point. You can imagine like your paintbrush or your pencil, that will be the starting point. So in this case, it's an x and y value, and the x and y value, because we have the chart area, we can start here from the left side. Basically, we went from one side to the other side depending on the level, and in this case, if numbers is our reference, the level would be 5. So number 5 would show here somewhere, then all the way to the end there. So let's start to draw that one. So we say here left, now we have here the y. The y would be the height of it. So for that, we can use a special command. We start with the y, which is a reference to this here. So this is very nice. So say a dot, and then we're going to use a special Chartjs command. So get pixel for value. So basically what we want to do here, we have the value of number 5, but what is the pixel reference to that? So in this case, I can just use the level because the level is being looped through. So that's number 1. That's the first one. So that's the starting point. Then I'm going to say here ctx dot line to draw the line from the move to point to the next part. And in this case, I want to go from the left side all the way to the other side, which is the right side of the chart area, which we have already prepared. So say right, comma, and then of course we want to have a horizontal line, straight line, so we just keep it in the same level. Once we do this, ctx dot stroke to draw the item, save, refresh. Alright, so now we have all the lines showing, and you can see here this will be eventually an issue. I want to push it up because it should be as the maximum value of whatever value it could be. Anyway, that's later on. You will understand why later. So we have these here now, and then what I want to do is semicolon here. Let's give it a background color, and the background color, or sorry, not the background color, the border color. That's first what we're going to work on. The border color should be based on level borders, which are solid number 1 on the alpha values for that reason. So what I'm going to do here, we're going to say ctx.stroke style, and the stroke style will be what exactly? Well, if we are, and this is very important, these should be all related to this, or these should be all equal here. All of these must be equal eventually. But you can see here, number 5 will have this matching color here. What this color is, I don't know. I guess maybe blue or something like that. So let's grab this. So we're going to say here, I'm just going to grab all of this data set item. Then we say a dot, and then we're going to say here, instead of level, we're going to say here level border. Put that in here, and then we say here index, whatever the index is, which is based on the loop here, or the for loop. So if I save this now, refresh, we get now these colors here, beautiful, and it shows them all nicely. Alright, so that's the first part that works. And if we change this to, instead of numbers, we have cards. Say, you can see here we get only 2 items. And the reason why we get 2 items right now is because of this. However, I want to show you, of course, this is another one in the previous video I also showed, but just in case, if I do 19 here. Alright, interesting that 19 is not showing here. So if I say 18.5, let's see if that is being shown. That one is still visible. As you can see here, we get this, and I don't want it. And the same would be if we have a negative, let's say minus 0.5. Then we get this one here. So I want to block those out, so that should not be visible. So what I'm going to do here, we have this for loop, but this for loop here should have a if statement where we filter out the item. So what we can do here is quite simple. We can just say here let's make a let and say y position equals, and we have here the pixel item. We need to get the pixel item of this level. We can put it here. So then once we get this level of pixel item, we can make an if statement. So if y position would be bigger or equal to top, and this is all related to the chart area. If you want to understand that, watch the video of understanding chart area in Chartjs, which you can find in the description box, by the way. And then what we want to do is we're going to just filter out only this: if y equals bigger than, or sorry, is bigger or equal to top, or and, it's not or but and, so there must be both conditions. Y position would be smaller or equal to the bottom, because we're working here with pixels. Alright, cut this out, put that in there. There we are. Once we have this, save that. If I refresh now, you can see now it disappears. Alright, that works. Let's see here, that was that one, the negative one. Of course, that should not be. So if I say 18.5, you would see that it will not show anymore above as well. Alright. However, if it's 18, it will show. Okay, now we have this all working. And basically we could make even the button now. Let's make that button, so we have that at least the functionality working. That's quite simple. So we're going to say your button, and here another button, and then we can say here, I guess what we can do here an on click, or we can just say here just ID. It should be cards, ID numbers, and we say here basically cards numbers, and this is basically the reference of these constants, which is the data sets that we want to show. So now what we can do here, constant cards will be equal document dot get element by ID, and we say here cards. Another one is document get element by numbers, or sorry, constant numbers get element by ID on the numbers, because we have these two buttons. And then what we want to do here is an add event listener. So we say here cards dot add event listener, make sure you spell that correctly. Then if we click on it, so on click, we have the event. We don't have to really register the event, but that's alright. And then we can say here, I want to trigger a function. So let's say here this function change chart. Quite simple. And then what we want to do here is we say here change chart, but I'm going to grab a few parameters that I want to put in here, or sorry, not parameters, these are what we call arguments, and whatever is in here is parameters. So we're going to say here the my chart object, and we can put in your value. Let's say value 1 for now. You could even do cards or numbers, doesn't matter. So we have this here, this exact same structure. Let's do a semicolon here, put it in there, semicolon here, should be numbers, but of course here we say here number 2, so it's 1 or 2, like the different data set we're showing. So then here I can just say a chart, because I use this reference here, which is a reference to the chart object. And then here would be the type, or the chart type, could be anything you want. Alright, so then what I want to do, of course, I want to update, to make sure we update the chart here. All I want to do then is basically say if, and that's the if statement. So if type equals strict 1, and then we say here chart, what I want to do is chart.config.data.datasets will be index 0. So we're going to change the item here. So if you're wondering how I get this chart, of course, is the chart object. There we go from config, from config we can go here into the data, and this data brings us to this spot here where we have the data set, and we want to say this data set index 0 will be the numbers or the cards, and that will be equal to, well, if this one would be related to cards, I guess we can say here cards, that's the first item, then that's basically this. We should make it like that. That will be more organized. Once we have that, we can do another one. If the value or the type will be number 2. In that case, we should show the numbers value here, or the numbers data set. So if I save this, refresh, interesting, we get a mistake here. Cards already declared on 122. Oh, alright. This is of course not allowed because we have, let's say here, cards data set. I have here the numbers. I guess we should see the numbers data set. And I wonder if I said here cards or numbers. Let me just double check this because that should be consistent. Numbers in plural with an S. So I corrected it to numbers. They should be all fine. And then I guess we should have this one. Cards data set will be, alright, I just put it like that. Maybe this shouldn't, I'm sorry, this should not be, this should be the button, cards button. That makes far more sense to me. And we say here, if we click on these buttons and the numbers buttons, we should save, refresh. Let's see what's happened. Let me double check. Alright, tiny rookie mistake my side. So what I need to do, of course, is because why it doesn't work here is simply this. We didn't put in here the button, or sorry, the update. So we say chart.update to force the update that we want. Save, refresh. There we are, and there we are. Alright, so this works. Let's refresh it correctly. So now we have this all working. Background color is now important to do. So the background color is a bit more tricky. So we have this for each loop. So after the for each loop, let's put a 7 column there, and then we're going to work on our new item. So this one is tricky because basically, just think about it, we need to start from 0 going up here, or at least from there to there, or wherever the position is. And we don't have a 0 here. So what we have to do is we have to play around with 2 items. Well, first of all, we have to make sure it's 0, but secondly, what if our value doesn't hit 90 at all? Let's say 80. And then we will have this filtering effect that will counteract on our work. So what we have to do here is to make sure it's dynamic enough to understand if we are within a certain range or bracket. In that case, we want to make sure that that bracket is understanding that the very maximum value would be whatever is showing on the scale. So to do that, I'm going to go here, and what we're going to do here, we're going to say here, first thing is to check basically the length. And what we have to do then is we have to filter. What do we have to filter here? Well, basically we need to filter the array of the data level. So let me just show you what I'm talking about. So first of all, you have this Datasets index 0, and then we say a dot level. If I save this, refresh, open up developer tab, right now it looks all perfect. This one is just fine. Let's go to the other one here. We get the new one. You can see it loops through. Here we have, well, let me just reduce this one to, let's say 70, and then you will see exactly what I'm talking about. Let's make this 70. And if I change this, you can see here that one. Alright, so we have a 70 here, or this should not even be 70. My bad. This should be 90, but this one should be 70. So it is below here. Alright, so you can see here, we're missing basically the red line here. And this must be then, Chartjs must understand this point to here is basically a color, but it should not go so much up that it will draw basically the invisible space here, or basically the white space outside of the chart area. So we want to block that off. What we need to do for this is we need to play around with the array. So we have this array, we show these levels here. And let me just change the item here to numbers, because that's the one that we're working on right now. Then we get this one immediately. That's easier for me for refresh. We can see all of this data here. So what I need to do is I need to filter to know how far on this list are we, or basically how many array lines or how many arrays will be shown based on our scale here. And this has become important. So what we're going to do here, and this took me a while to figure out. So what we're going to do here is the first thing is we have this, and then we're going to say here we have this item here. And then if I do here a filter, so we have what we call a filter of an array. So what we need to do here is this item, we're going to say here dot filter, and I'm going to make a filter functionality. So let me just cut that out, put it in here. Let's say here filter the data. So we know exactly how many items we have. So then what I'm going to do here is a check length. What you want to do, and this is basically a reference to a function. So now I'm going to create the function, and this function is just simply this function check length. And the check length will be I'll just call it the array length. And what I want to do here is to know, in our case, if 60 or if 70 would be the highest, everything below, so number 9 or 90 will be skipped, but only those will be shown. This is for us very important to know. Alright, so we're going to do this. We have this array check length. The array length would be basically the values, if I'm not mistaken, sorry, or this is the parameter. So within this parameter, what we're going to do here is, let's see, we need to say here, return the array length. And the array length is, let me see, how do I reference this? I need to reference this to, oh sorry, that's this one here, of course. So I'm getting confused. This is basically the array, as I showed you previously. So we're going to filter that and going to run through this function here. And this function uses the array length. And if you're wondering what is the array length, that's basically this levels here. That's just the entire length. But then we're going to filter this, but we say return this with y.max. And let me show you what y.max really is. Well, basically the y.max is the maximum value, which is number 70 in our case. If we do this, we should get now a new value. And we can use this value now. Let's show this value here. Save, refresh. Array length is not defined, of course. So what we need to do is, of course, to define this one. That's my bad. So constant. Should we use the same name? I would just call it our length or level. Should we say that level array? I guess we can just use that one. If I do this, save, refresh, what's happening, as you can see here, now you can see here it shows the value and it excludes number 70 or number 90. That is the next value, if I'm not mistaken, within our array here. Alright, that shows it. So now what we have to do is because we need to now work with this item here, and this is a real tricky one because we want to make sure that this is dynamic enough that when we add up new items, it should read this, but also it understands which one would be the very ending of it. So let's work on this. So what we're going to say here is the following. We're going to say here. So while looking at my notes, I was also thinking, all right, we did it the right way, but I figured out it might be probably the best way because I want to duplicate an array. So what I want to do here, because I was thinking if I'm going to just grab this one, I might maybe eventually damage my existing array in the data. So I don't want that. So we have this one, this is fine. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the array here. And this array is just a level array. So I'm going to say constant. And I call this the rectangle level. And the reason why I'm going to give this that name is we will need to adjust certain values in here. This is important. And I'm almost certain there might be some fine-tuning on this, but that's alright, I'll skip that for now. So first of all, I'm going to use the rest operator, which is just triple dots. With what basically means I'm going to duplicate an array. Because I don't want to adjust the original array. So the duplication of the array will be basically this. So I'm going to grab this, put that one in here. So once we duplicate this array, I need to insert a few values. Number one, what I need to do is I need to insert a 0, and number 2 I need to insert whatever would be the last value here. So that will be very important, but before that I need to remove everything that would be excess. So you can see if I go up here we have this, but if I, for example, the highest value would be number 30, then this would be the top value and every other line would be not necessary to be displayed. So to do that, we're going to say here constant, and then we're going to say here I'm going to use a splice. So we're going to say rec, and then let's call this our rec level, and then we say dot splice. And what splice does is basically to cut out a part of the array. And what I want to keep, or at least what I want to keep, is basically this. we have here this array, which gives us the filtered data, and it shows us how many arrays are shown. So if I do here dot length, we will get here basically 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, it says length of 4, so we need to have basically this length. Put it in here, and then we say here splice, and we can say here the splice will be length, the array dot length, and guess -1 if I save that. Let's see if that will work. Console log, and let's get the rec level. Save that. Refresh. Alright, this is interesting. Let's see what is the very ending value. So it runs through both of them. Let me double check. 109. Alright. So we get this, and then it shows here the length, and it shows here without the 60. Well, I guess the -1 would be not necessary. In this case, sorry. So that will be fine. So exactly the same item, I guess. But we have now our own array that we are allowed to insert values and remove values from without damaging the core of the array of the dataset. So now we have this. Let's remove this one, and now you understand why we will do this. If I'm going to do here enter, I'm going to say here rec level, and I want to insert a 0, because why? I need to have the 0 to here. That will be a color, because right now we don't have a 0. We only have defined the ending bracket basically, but not the lower starting bracket. So that's what we're going to do now. So for this, I say here dot, and then we say here unshift, which is basically allowing a value being inserted at the very beginning of an array, and that value will be 0. So this could be, if you don't have that one, basically we have the y max, we also have the y minimum, which would define the minimum value here. So I can show you this in case maybe you have a negative value. You say, oh, hold on, I have a negative value. If I save that, that is probably even better. If the value would be here somewhere, if we start at a negative value, then you will not have this issue. So it will dynamically figure out that one. So I guess this would be even better than adding a 0. You just do at the y minimum value, assuming that that will be the lowest value here. So then we have that one. Next one, what I want to do is I want to say rec level, but now I want to say here push, and what I'm going to push here is the y.max, which is the highest value. So if I put in there, you can see the highest value is 70 instead of 90. But this is basically related to the 90, the color of the 90 value. Alright, so now we have this, and now it becomes easier because we did all the heavy lifting here. So now we're going to say here for, and we're going to say here let, and then we say here I equals 0, semicolon, and then we're going to say here the I will loop through the I as long as the length of our array, I guess. Let's see here, where is that? I think we can probably get, let's see if it will be this one or that one. I have to see on that. Probably it's this one here. Length of array. Well, that will be a tricky one. I am not sure about this one, so we're going to test it later on. We can see. So we do I++ for increment, and then what we're going to do here is ctx.begin path. And once we did that, we're going to say here ctx.fill style, and the fill style is the color of the background, and the color of the background will be, of course, the value of the item itself. So that is, if I go up here, it should be the level background. So I'm going to say here data.datasets index 0 dot level background, and then here we say I. Once we have this, that's the first one. The next one is the rect fill. So ctx, or sorry, not the rect fill, it's the fill rectangle, to draw the rectangle. Here basically we're going to say x, y, width, and height. So we already know the height will be defined by our rect level, and the x is left, and we know the width here, this one here, I guess this should be the width itself to define the full width, not right, but width, because the width will define from the pixels between this point to there. So then for the height, we're going to say here let's see, what we need to do here is that we're going to do the y.getPixel for value. And then here, what we're going to do here is we're going to say here the rectangle values, or the rectangle level. And then the rectangle level will be the I. And then we have another one here, which would be basically this value, because the height, we need to deduct that. We need to deduct basically whatever will be the starting value minus the top value minus the starting value. So what is the top value? Well, if I would be the first one is 0, the next one would be then the top value for this. So what I'm going to do here, we say I, and then we say here plus 1. So we have basically, if this is I0, this should be I, or if I would be 0, this should be 0 then, and this will be number 1. And then we say here minus the rectangle I equals 0. So if I save this, let's see here, there we are. Now we get that correctly. And if I change this to cards, change that one. And if I change this even again higher, or let's see here what we have here, or let's change that. Instead of 90, we have now only 19. If I save this one, the number should be changed as well. As you can see here, it will modify now to the yellow color, which is that one here. And if I do this on 25, save, refresh, you can see now it becomes purple. And purple would be equal to 30. So if I do 30 here, we should see the purple line as well. There we are. Numbers, cards, and everything basically works. Of course, here's the thing, you have to have a high value here. If I make this, because this one's 18 right now, if I make this 24, and then we click on numbers, or sorry, cards, you can see this becomes an issue. So what we want to do here is this must of course be then always a high value. So this should, maybe the last one should be the highest value ever. So that if we do this, it will match itself nicely. So that's the only exception in this entire chart. But that's basically the core of it. And it's quite a tricky one. So if you like this video, and this was a real tricky one even for me, maybe you want to also, for example, show the highest value in here, like in a div, where it will extract the highest value of a score in this case, and then show it nicely in a div. So that would be another option as well to extend the functionality of it.